This is the regular meeting of the Kaneland Board of Education. And we would like to inform all board meeting attendees that this meeting is being live streamed and archived for access at any time by our community members on the internet within 24 to 48 hours of the meeting's conclusion. And if you'll stand with me and recite the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Witt.
Here.
Mr. Gonzalez.
Here.
Mr. Carey.
Here.
Dr. Lawler.
Here.
Mr. Mankivsky.
Here.
Mrs. Simmons. Here. Mrs. Junk is absent.
She is absent today, and with 6 members present, we do have a quorum. Are there any consent agenda items that board members would like to move to new business or closed session?
Yes, H3, which would be closed session, please.
Okay, so H3 now creates a closed session for us, and we actually have another thing on there too. So are there any others? No? Okay, so hearing none, there is one other change to the agenda, which is another closed session topic. So the H3 will go to, is under Open Meetings Act under Section 2C1. Then we also need to discuss student disciplinary matters under 2C9. So I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
So moved. Meaning the closed session.
Adding the closed session and the two things and the movement. Yep.
Yes, I make that motion.
Second.
And a roll call, please.
Mr. Gonzalez.
Aye.
Mr. Carey.
Aye.
Dr. Lawler.
Aye.
Mr. Mankivsky.
Aye.
Mrs. Simmons.
Aye.
Mrs. Witt.
Aye. Motion carries 6-0. Now we are on board and superintendent salutes. I'll turn it over to Dr. Lake.
Good evening. I am proud to do an early introduction. We have a new administrator who's going to be taking over July 1, or she's going to be starting July 1, who will eventually replace Dr. Fuchs in the summer of July 1 of 2024. So with that, I would like to have Jackie Bogan please join me. Please welcome Jackie to Kaneland Board. Like I shared, Jackie is going to be replacing Dr. Fuchs as our assistant superintendent for finance and business the summer of July 21 to officially take over, but we'll be starting this July 1st to mentor for a year to learn the role and a responsibility. And so with that, I'm going to stop talking. I'll let Jackie tell us a little bit about herself, introduce herself, and tell us a little bit about her family and as she transitions to Kaneland. So welcome,
Yes.
Jackie.
Thank you. My name is Jackie Bogan, and first and foremost, I just want to say thank you to the entire Kaneland community, the Board of Education, the administration here at Kaneland, and the entire team. I truly am grateful for the opportunity to be able to serve these students and this community. I hail from Batavia. I'm married. I have 2 young children who unfortunately are home ill this evening. So I'm extra thankful to be out and about today. But I'm really just grateful for the opportunity. I'm very excited to be a knight, and I really wouldn't, be in this position without, prior mentorship and guidance from Dr. Fuchs. All of the folks that I've worked with along the way, and my family, my very supportive husband at home, and just the opportunity to be able to pursue this here. So thank you.
Great to have you. Welcome. Welcome again.
Thank you so much.
Make another one. Thank you.
Thank you,
Jackie.
so much.
Thank you. Good to see you. Thank you. As Jackie mentioned, she does have 2 sick ones at home, so Jackie's going to transition home at this time, but thank you very much for coming out, Jackie.
Thank you.
And that was all I had for salutes for tonight.
Okay. Dr. Fuchs.
I don't have any, thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, tonight's consent agenda, as we say, has been amended. And it contains the following action items: the approval of the treasurer's report from January 2023, the approval of the minutes of the January 30th, 2023 regular meeting, the approval of the destruction of audio recordings from closed session meetings from August 2021, and the following informational items: the student suspension data report, field trip notifications, and the Freedom of Information Act or FOIA report. So I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as amended.
So moved.
Second.
And a roll call, please.
Mr. Carey,
Aye.
Dr. Lawler,
Aye.
Mr. Mankivsky,
Aye.
Mrs. Simmons,
Aye.
Mrs. Witt,
Aye.
Mr. Gonzalez.
Aye.
Motion carries 6-0. Okay, this is the first opportunity for public comments. Sign up. We have a few people. Okay, good. The board values public input to inform our decision-making and to provide information and insight into what is happening throughout the district. Board meetings are held to conduct the business of the Board of Education and are required by law to take place in public. However, they are not public forums. We use the public comment section as an opportunity to listen to our stakeholders. For that reason, the board does not enter into a debate or respond to questions spontaneously or without proper investigation and deliberation. In most cases, concerns or questions requiring follow-up, will be referred to the superintendent. If you choose to speak publicly, we ask that you do so at the microphone. State your name and the village of residence or your association with us for the record, and limit your comments to 3 minutes or less so that all who wish to speak may have that opportunity. Public comment is a maximum of 30 minutes with a 20-minute total length of time for any one subject. You are encouraged to seek a private appointment to discuss matters concerning individual students or staff members. While public education can be an emotional issue, and understandably so, the board strives to maintain a certain level of decorum at the meeting. Those who speak are expected to maintain a tone of courtesy and civility. And the first person on the list is Kendra Schumacher.
Good evening. My name is Kendra Shoemaker. I'm a 4th grade ELA teacher, KEA president, community member, and Kaneland graduate. I know over the next few weeks there are going to be conversations about staff placements and potential section reductions. I understand that many factors come into play when discussing staffing in class sections. On behalf of the members I represent, I ask that you consider the decisions being made have many effects, just one of those being class size. While class size may be primarily a financial decision for the district, class size impacts the students in many significant ways. There are academic struggles and successes, behavior challenges and successes, social emotional needs, just to name a few. Please see the students in the classes and not just the number of students that can be in those classes. I urge you to reach out to me with questions. I feel confident that I could find some teachers that would be willing to share their stories with you and the stories of the students in their classes. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you for your comments. The next person on the list is Katie Riley.
Good evening. My name is Katie Riley. I'm a resident of Elburn. I have a high school senior, an 8th grader, and I'm also a KPAS teacher at Blackberry Creek Elementary. So funny story, I thought I was signing in under Kendra's name because it's Blackberry's turn to be here tonight. So I really didn't have a public comment until, I'm a reading teacher, by the way, that's a little embarrassing, until I heard what Kendra said. And speaking currently to specifically Blackberry Creek's numbers, looking at our students, I remember speaking here, might have been a year ago, might have been 2 years ago, about the same topic. And knowing that when we look at class size, we tend to look at the number of employed people in a building and certified teachers and divvy our kids up that way. Unfortunately, even though we might have a PE teacher with an open period, they're not in my room assisting at that time. So I just want to second kind of what Kendra was saying in that when we look at placements for next year and bringing employees into the district and keeping those employees, we really look at what a classroom teacher with a classroom of students is going to be. And we focus more on that because I feel like that is going to get our students' needs best met. Thank you.
That was great. Thank you, and you did really well for being extemporaneous. The last speaker is Scott Stallcup.
Hi, Scott Stallcup. I have 3 kids in the district from Sugar Grove, and I just wanted to bring to the board's attention something that was made aware to me this week. There was a group of, I think they were 5th graders at Shields that delivered a group of Valentines to a retirement center. And they didn't get very far in, but there were a couple of them. My daughter was one of them. Through their class, they made Valentines and delivered them to the home. They were so grateful, so appreciative. Just wanted to bring that up to the board. So, you know, if there's other ways, maybe Christmas cards kids can make. I mean, things like that are invaluable to some of those people that probably don't get cards all year round. So anything that like that can be done is, I think, is just a huge connection with the district and the community. So.
Thank you for telling us about that. So are there any other public comments? I know we don't have anyone else signed up, but I'm just checking. Okay, hearing none, we'll move forward then. We'll start with new business. J1 is the approval to seek bids for spring 2023.
I'll turn that over to Dr. Fuchs if you want to provide updates for us.
Sure. This year is a slow bid year. We do fuel annually, and so that one would need to be bid. The auditor and health insurance brokers are underway. Custodial, we finished in January, and then the pickup truck will do in the spring, shortly after spring break. That's a good thing, because the auditor and health insurance, those take a little bit longer because of the interviews that are required. You can note all of the other things below. Next year, this time, it will be a very busy year, and that's actually very good. As you just met Jackie, she will be able to go through quite a few bids with me, and then that'll keep those contracts for 3 years. So then the next time they have to bid, she will have been through it and have been in the district for a couple of years at that point. And so that'll be really, really good in terms of the contracts. The copier paper at this time is still problematic. So we are ordering from multiple vendors. One vendor can't promise that much at a time. So we have to get what we can when we can. And as soon as I don't know if I want to call it market, but supply chain for paper straightens out, we can go back to bidding and it will be much more economical. Copier services, our Canon leases due. Tim Wolf, our director of technology, Steve Carpenter, his assistant, and myself met with Canon last week. They are working on a proposal for us, and I anticipate bringing that back to the board in March. We couldn't be happier with them. Granted, this past year, we've had some service things. Actually not service issues, because service is really good, but the copiers are getting worn, and so they're breaking down a little bit more. So they have to be fixed. But Canon has a great 4-hour average response time. And so, yes, they break, but yes, they get fixed. So additionally, and I'll explain this again when we come with the proposal, the technology department has spent a lot of time with the software that integrates into like our swipe cards and our logins and all kinds of integration. So we anticipate that that will serve our district very well. Ryan, do you have a question?
I have hesitation about not bidding that item, and that's what you're saying we're not going to do.
We've invested quite a bit in the software and the training of our staff, specifically the technology staff. All of that is we would have to redo all of that. And
Yeah, I
Anyway.
understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
I don't,
Yeah.
I hear what you're saying, but
Yeah.
we had the same conversation about the insurance brokerage years ago,
yep,
and we finally bid it and saved money, so I just have reservation. Or we did,
we didn't.
the brokerage, yes,
Yeah.
the broker, I don't bid.
We changed the way that he's paid.
I think we're talking about two different things.
Okay,
It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
My reference doesn't matter.
okay.
I have reservations about this. I understand what
Okay.
you're saying though.
Do you, okay, if the board directs me, I can talk with Tim about that. I know he feels strongly. Probably as strongly as you do, the other side.
Of course. I'm just one person.
But some of the ones that we will bid next year, snow removal, athletic training, fire system, special ed trans, garbage disposal and recycling. Those are all next year. The following year then is security, natural gas and electricity. And we just tend to try to get them on 3-year cycles.
So, just to touch on the point that Ryan brought up, is it possible to quantify what the cost would be to retrain, so see the total cost of changing over to see if there's value in it? Just,
I will try to have the technology department work on that. It makes me think of the hours and hours that they've spent integrating and problem solving and troubleshooting. But we'll see what we can do to quantify that before we come in March.
So all of these items are going to come back to the board in some fashion. We're not approving that you would do these. You're just seeking bids. The bids will come back to us and then we'll have an opportunity to vote on all of the bids.
That is correct. And right now, the ones that you'll be voting on this year are the ones on the front page: fuel, auditor, health insurance, and the pickup truck.
Which I'm fine with. If we were to want to do something different with the cadre services, when do we have to actually do something?
I would say next meeting would be ideal because the contract is up at the end of June.
So is it possible to get us that data from the tech department or anything that you might be able to before the next meeting, like in an update or something, so that we would know whether or not we wanted to?
Yeah, maybe
change
we
it?
should say 2 meetings then.
Okay,
Maybe I should bring the data and Tim and Steve to talk about it at the next meeting, make that decision, and then move forward from there, possibly.
Is March still enough time?
I hope so.
real quick, are there 4 people that want to hear that additional data and talk about it? Yeah, okay.
At that meeting, would it be possible to move it to consent if we all find?
Sure. Like we talked about
Move
at next meeting, and if we're
move
all
which
okay
to
with it, then it can be on
consent, yeah.
consent the
Consent
following meeting.
meeting then? No,
So
no.
if
It's a
you
bid, so.
choose to go to bid,
Yeah.
we won't be back in March because it takes X number of weeks to prepare the bid specifications, and then we have to put it in the newspaper and advertise. Then you have to wait 2 weeks. You have to open the bids, evaluate the bids. Bidding is a process, so you wouldn't probably see it again, I would say, till the end of April,
Okay.
at the earliest, if you decide to bid in February.
Okay.
We've been with Canon in the district for a number of years. They continue to serve us well. Their systems are good. Teachers and staff and administrators and secretaries, we use the machines a lot. And so we need to make sure whatever system we get, that it's a system that can handle the volume that we demand. So the good news is, though, now that I think about it, 3 years ago, our average was 1.1 million copies a month. Recently, it's come down to 808,000 copies a month average. So we have done better because the tech department regularly tries to avoid having people print. And so our costs have come down with Canon throughout that time, and we'll see that with the next proposal that they bring. There's a savings on there because of our lower usage.
I was actually gonna ask, it's funny that you lead into that because I was gonna ask on the paper side, obviously there's a shortage, we've discussed it. Do you feel that the district has streamlined to, I by no means want to advocate for the students to suffer in any way by reducing paper, but do you feel like we've streamlined to the point where we're using the most that we need to use at this point without anyone suffering?
So what I would tell you is that we worked really hard to do that. Back, I don't have the year, I want to say around 2014, every classroom had a printer. That's no longer the case. Now we have what are called multifunction devices. They're placed in centrally located areas of the building. And Tim has selected the locations so that nobody has to walk more than 90 seconds to get to a copier to make sure that people have access, but yet not having it in their room makes it less likely to waste. Additionally, with the swipe cards, when you get to the printer, if you decide you don't actually need it, you can delete it because it goes into a queue. And just simply by lowering our usage by over almost 300,000 over the 3-year period, I would say we are still making progress. But what I would tell you is there's always more progress to be made.
And I think sharing those kind of things, because in your world, the copier is everything, you know, for teachers and everything. We're not teachers. And so when it comes to like our use, I don't use copiers at all. It's everything is digital and everything is email and stuff like that. So them just explaining that, what we don't know, there's things that we just don't know that you guys have to use it for and stuff like that. So I think just explaining that for us would be helpful.
Yep.
So,
Good.
you know.
Board packets. There you go. So, we'll bring, we'll put that on the agenda, to discuss, at the next meeting. I believe the president had 4 thumbs up. Yeah,
I did. I had 6.
6. There you go.
So are there any other questions or comments from the board?
Yes, sorry. The pickup truck, is that just like, I'm just curious on how that works. Do we call up dealers to say, give us your best price, or is there how does that work?
Similarly, Mark Payton will, determine what he's looking for in a pickup truck.
Okay,
And then we'll put together bid specifications that everybody has to meet.
okay,
Their minimum specifications. They can certainly bid on something bigger, better, faster, stronger, but we'll give them the minimum
okay.
and then they have to meet that. And what we try to do is we put in their language to encourage multiple dealers that have similar types of vehicles.
I'm just curious how that's gonna turn out, because I know there's still a shortage.
Last year we had just a very challenging time getting the truck from last year. Yeah, so I think we had to wait. I can't remember for how long. It just, it's hard out there right now to procure what you want when you want it.
Anything else? Okay, then I'll entertain a motion that the board directs the administration to procure the items above by seeking public bids or negotiate contracts as described above.
So moved. Second.
And a roll call, please.
Dr. Lawler.
Aye.
Mr. Mankivsky.
Aye.
Mrs. Simmons.
Aye.
Mrs. Witt.
Aye.
Mr. Gonzalez.
Aye.
Mr. Carey.
Aye.
Motion carries 6-0. We'll move on now to the approval of the school bus purchase for the 2023-2024 school year.
Yes, thank you. This is a topic that Ford and Dr. Fuchs discussed at the last meeting, requesting additional information. So Dr. Fuchs spent some time putting that together. So if you please walk us through and share some of the updates, Dr. Fuchs.
Great, thank you, I appreciate that. There were two primary questions that I was following up on. The first one was from Board Member Carey. You had asked, because I had mentioned we can no longer get one-year-old buses, should we get more at this time to prevent? Unfortunately, there are no more available, so it pretty much became a moot point at that point. But I did talk with the director about it as well, and she and I both remember the year that we had 10 buses from the same year, and we could only afford to buy 2, and now we had too many that were old. So I'm already not uncomfortable, but I wouldn't want to go any higher because we're going to have 10 2022s before we can start to get to the 23s. So I still feel strongly that 10, you don't want any more than that, but we can't get them anyway. So.
Fair enough, thank you.
Yep, you bet. I talked to Matt, our sales guy, about it, and he reserves hours like a year in advance, and then waits for us to do this before he gives them away to others. So I feel lucky that we can get them. The second question then was, would it be better to auction the buses rather than trade them in? I talked with several different auction places. The first one was the state, the Illinois Department of Central Management Services. They will allow us to buy our buses, but we can't sell our buses to them. So that was a no-go from the state. So then I reached out to private auction places, both of them local. And one of them had no luck at all and wasn't able to help us. The other one was able to find multiple school buses across the country. He sent me 6 samples of what they sold for in different states. And it's possible that a bus could sell at an auction for more than what our trade is in. Some of the pros of auctioning would be you could maybe get higher prices, but you wouldn't know till that day of the auction. Some of the cons is that we would have to have people take the buses to the place or pay to have them delivered, which is a possibility. But it comes off of your trade value. And then they would set the auction price at a minimum threshold. We would work with them on that. And then they would either sell, there or whoever bids higher. So that's a risk. And then the third thing was if they don't sell, by then it's too late to trade. So then you have to scrap them. And to scrap them, I learned that right now scrapping prices are very little, about 10 cents a pound. We would need our mechanics, or I don't think you'd want a bus driver doing it. They have to remove a lot of the inside parts before you scrap it. We don't have a lot of extra room on the bus lot. And if it happens to be in the winter, the buses that we wouldn't be using would get in the way of the snow plows. So there are a variety of challenges related to the possibility of getting a higher price. So what we discussed, the administration discussed, was rather than trying to auction all 5 buses this year, we thought it would be prudent, since we're getting on that time, to trade this year's buses, but then in the fall, identify a bus that we're ready to get rid of, the next one in line, because we keep the big list, And then in the fall, try to take it to auction, see how it goes. How much work was it compared to the value that you get? Did we have buyers? Because the other thing is the auction house does charge a percent based on what you sell. So they get a piece of it too. So, and compare that to what the trade values are and see if that's something we would want to do for typically 4 other buses. Because we typically will trade 5. Ideally, someday you might want to get up to 7 when the budget, equals out kind of thing. But prudently, 5, we've been able to maintain our fleet. So we thought maybe in the fall of 23, we could try to take one to auction, see how it goes, and then make a decision. Because the place where we get our buses, they need to know now when we place our order if we're giving them trades or not. And so, because I said, well, can I tell you in June? No, you don't get to tell me in June. So they need to know, now how many trades they're getting for the buses. So I believe that covers everything. If we go to auction, the one auctioneer did say that because a lot of the auctions are online, there is a bigger audience, but the market for school buses probably isn't ginormous. So, the other thing is I did talk with my colleagues from Kane County. We had a meeting last week on Thursday and I brought it up. There's nobody at that table that is currently auctioning buses. Everybody trades them in with their new ones. So there was nobody with experience to share how that's worked for them.
Good or bad.
Right. So.
Can you educate me on the extent to which we use our buses in terms of compliance with state standards? And I know you can't speak for every state, but are these buses basically, when we take them out to auction, are we selling them to people who are going to convert them into living spaces or going to do something fun? Or can we sell them to other districts that can further use them? Are they at the point, by the time we're ready to trade them in, are they at the point to where you're not going to be able to bus school children to school?
Sometimes yes, sometimes no. For example, last year we had 5 buses that we traded. I would say 3 of the 5 you could have sold, but they have over 150,000 miles on it. So I'm not sure that you could have, but you might have been able to. But 2 of them last year, if I remember correctly, we were hoping they would drive off the lot and make it to the road. So that was our goal. We were thinking we were going to have to tow one to the place, but fortunately they were able to get it down there. So it just depends on the year. We run them 10, 12 years. And we have, if I remember correctly, somewhere between 35 and 40 gravel roads that some of our buses go down in the western part of Kane County. So those buses are, worn harder than some of the others. We rotate the buses. They've got a system where you get the new buses and they get certain routes. Then you switch the next year, you get this bus for that route to try to manage the fleet. So best practices, fleet management and things like that.
Yeah, one of the things that concerns me is the market's limited. It's not like we're selling off work trucks where someone's gonna, 100,000 miles, put another 100,000 on them. You got to find someone who wants a bus and wants to pay more than we're gonna get for trade-in value, minus auction fees and the cost to get them down there. So.
Look for a partridge family.
Exactly.
Several partridge families.
I do.
I'm aging myself.
Yeah, I know who they are.
Now I can't get that scene out of my head. Thank you.
The little big guy.
I think it's worth investigating though. It's kind of a good experiment, right? To see how it goes and compare it to control group and then you decide, right? So Plus then we'll have some expertise. You said there was nobody in Kane County that did, so we will be, right?
Right.
And when Dr. Fuchs and I looked at the auction sites, each of the two auction sites only had like 4 buses on it. So it wasn't like it was turning over 20, 30, 40 buses. So there was just a small number of buses, and the shape that they were in, we don't know how ours would do compared to those. So that's why we thought for now, for the time, to get the 5 done, then in the fall, go try one and see how it goes and learn from that experience and maybe become the experts in that area.
Because I don't think of the loss of any trade-in revenue is going to be a big deal because all of them are only together are worth 16.5, right?
Exactly.
So what? Not even a rounding error. Is that what-
Yeah.
Peter Lopate.
So
You think he needs a bus?
he might.
That was his line. It's not even a rounding error.
Yeah.
That's right.
So I mean, yeah.
Thanks for your work on that, Dr.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Yes. So we do have action on this one. I'll entertain a motion that the board directs the administration to move forward with the purchase of 5 one-year-old replacement school buses in the amount of $478,125 minus the trade-in value of $16,500 for 7 trade-ins with a total cost of $461,625 to be delivered after July 1st, 2023.
So moved.
Wait,
Oh, sorry.
What?
Teresa, can you make that say 2-year-old? I changed it one
Oh.
place and I didn't change it here. Sorry.
Yep.
Thank you, Dr. Lawler.
And Julie, you got that
Got it.
change? Okay. So everybody knows it's 2-year-old, not 1-year-old, and Dr. Lawler, you're good with your motion? Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second.
And a roll call, please.
Mr. Mankowski,
Aye.
Mrs. Simmons.
Aye.
Mrs. Witt,
Aye.
Mr. Gonzalez,
Aye.
Mr. Carey,
Aye.
Dr. Lawler.
Aye.
Motion carries 6-0. All right, we're moving on to J3, which is the discussion of the Harder Middle School course book.
Yes, thank you. This is a annual 2-part topic that comes to the Board of Education. This presentation tonight is informational in nature, and if there's anything that needs to change, it will be discussed and then come back at the next meeting as consent. This is always a 2-part process. So with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Raleigh, and you can walk us through this presentation. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Talking about the Harder course book tonight, a little bit about the process for our course book proposals. We look at the course sequencing and curricular areas at each level. This is done at both the middle school and the high school. If you remember, the high school was approved earlier in about the October timeframe. Similar process is done at the middle school. So starting with the building administration team, they look for any reviews, proposals, edits. That then comes to the Department of Educational Services. We look through those, share with the final or final draft we share with KEA to take a look at that before bringing it to the Board of Education. As Dr. Layden said, in 2 parts. Tonight is just informing you of any changes, and then it will come back in consent to approve it. This is used for the registration of our students minus our 8th graders. Our 8th graders are going off the approved high school course book, registering for their freshman classes. With all that being said, in contrast to the high school course book, our middle school does not run electives like the high school does, and the sequencing of curriculum is pretty locked in. So all of our kids are going to take an English language arts class, a science, a social studies, and math, PE, and then they have their exploratory courses. So there's not as much leeway as with adding courses outside of a full-fledged curricular review that is led by the Ed Service Department. So what we are doing for next year is we're continuing to fine-tune what our current courses are. And that is looking at, when I say fine-tune, we're looking at the reported standards, the proficiency tables. A lot of those have been used already. So we're collecting and gathering student work to vet against what we have to see if any tweaks need to be changed. But that's really done at the instructional level, not necessarily course offerings. To talk a little about those full-fledged curricular reviews, we are in a district-wide science review for this year. And why that's significant is part of our local budget from the Ed Service Department goes towards the purchase of any new curriculum, the purchase of materials, technology license, things like that. And that gets eaten up almost instantaneous when we decide to go forward with our vendors. We look for, due to cost savings, we look for about 5 to 6 year licensing with the vendors. So this year, that dedicated budget item goes towards our science review. This will come to the board, and I believe it's in about a month and a half. Once we have those final products done, we bring quotes from the vendors to share with the board, and we will share units of study. Those units of study are reported to the Regional Office of Education. So that's a little bit of where we're at with the review. This piece and why it does not impact the course offerings, those courses haven't changed. Our 6th graders are going to take 6th grade science, our 7th graders 7th grade science, our 8th graders 8th grade science. So there's not any kind of variance in the courses that they'll be taking. It will be done when the changes here will be looking at the textbooks we use, the licensing that we use, and we will bring that to the board. I believe it's middle, the first or second meeting in April. So with that being said, there are no new courses to be offered, but it's really fine tuning what we already have on our books. Any questions with any of that? Thank you.
Curriculum guide.
That is. Happy to always deliver those if you are.
And there's no action needed on that one, correct?
Correct. I'll come back to consent at the next.
Okay. So we'll move on to J4, which is the approval of a donation from the Elburn Lions Club members.
Yep. This one and the next one are donations, and I'll start by turning this one over to Dr. Fuchs.
Great, thank you very much. Our Elburn Lions Club have been great partners throughout the years. You've seen different presentations with the students with special needs, with Sarah with the books, so just a variety. Here's another way that they've supported Kaneland and our students. They collected $720 and asked that it be used to pay any overdue student lunch accounts. So we did that, brought everybody to zero, and then also spread out the rest of the money to each of the elementary schools to be used for fun lunch days for students of low income. So grateful to the Elburn Lions Club as a great partner.
They have been in many ways. So if there aren't any questions or anything, we'll move on to the recommendation that the Board of Education accepts the donation in the amount of $720 from the Elburn Lions Club members to be used for overdue lunch balances and fun lunch at the elementary school for low-income students.
So moved.
Second.
And a roll call, please.
Mrs. Simmons.
Aye.
Mrs. Witt.
Aye.
Mr. Gonzalez.
Aye.
Mr. Carey.
Aye.
Dr. Lawler.
Aye.
Mr. Mankivsky.
Aye.
Motion carries 6-0. Next one's also a donation.
That's Dr. Fuchs.
So this one, we received 2 donations. Annually, our high school hosts the Hoops for a Cure shootout, and there are some expenses related to that fundraiser. And we had 2 $500 donations, one from Kane County Phantoms Baseball LLC, and the other one from Ernie Cologne, a high school coach. The donations were to be used for the expenses related to the Hoops for a Cure shootout, and we're grateful for those donations to help us raise money for, I believe, breast cancer.
Breast cancer.
Yep. So they raised $5,000 on the site, or just over 5,000 on the silent auction alone. And then he thinks, Mr. Rollman thought that they would have about 6,500 to 7,500 after expenses to donate.
That's great.
Thank you to the Kane County Phantoms Baseball and Mr. Cologne for their donations.
Awesome. So I'll entertain a motion that the Board of Education accepts the donations in the amount of $500 each from the Kane County Phantoms Baseball LLC and Ernie Cologne to be used for expenses related to the Hoops for a Cure shootout.
So moved. Second.
And a roll call.
Mrs. Witt,
Aye.
Mr. Gonzalez,
Aye.
Mr. Carey,
Aye.
Dr. Lawler,
Aye.
Mr. Mankivsky,
Aye.
Mrs. Simmons.
Motion carries 6-0. We will move on now to the board and superintendent.
Yes, thanks. I have a few updates that will take, a few calendar updates that will take place between now and our next Board of Education meeting. The first is our Hall of Fame. That committee meets 4 times a year. Our next meeting is this Wednesday from 6 o'clock to 7:30. The primary topic or task at this meeting is to determine our Hall of Fame inductees for the 22-23 school year. There are about 5 candidates, or nominees, that are on the ballot. So we'll be voting on that Wednesday night. And Board Member Mankivsky is our Hall of Fame representative, and we'll provide an update on how that goes, and also share the names shortly, and also where they're going to be recognized in the spring, or which spring event, if there are inductees. The next topic, this Thursday, we have a joint CAC, FAC, and FPC meeting that we have created. Our CAC, FAC, and FPC have been instrumental committees across our district for a number of years, providing feedback and information. So we added a new meeting for this Thursday from 7 o'clock to 8:30 in the library to walk through the referendum presentation. We have a series of those open houses scheduled across the district, are scheduled in the next 6 weeks, but we added this one especially for this group. Anybody else that would like to attend, community member or any board members, always welcome to attend those meetings.
We actually changed the FAC to that date.
That is your
Yeah.
FAC meeting.
Because that was my announcement, is the FAC is gonna meet together on that day instead of the regular scheduled meeting.
And then into next week, we have our first virtual open house for the referendum, and that is Tuesday the 21st. And there are several links that have been sent out for that Zoom meeting. Virtually, they've come through emails from the district. You can also go to the website, go to kaneland.org/referendum. You can click on the meeting site and then add that and attend virtually. We do hope to have great turnout for both of the virtual meetings. And we will share with audience at the virtual meetings that there's not a tour involved. We won't be able to do a tour with the virtual piece, but we still have the March meetings coming up that will provide more information on those as those dates approach. 2 other items. The next one is on the 23rd. Next Thursday, we have our biannual board candidate forum. That is a CAC KEA joint effort. They are working hard right now to finalize that, put that together. So each of our potential board candidates have been contacted, working through the CAC and KEA, and that will be here at Harder at 7 o'clock on Thursday the 23rd. That meeting is in lieu of the February CAC meeting, so we have that one instead. And again, the board candidates have been invited, and then questions are being developed. And that will be live streamed also, so that information will go out that it's live streamed. And then afterwards, we will record it and put that on our website like we do school board meetings. So
Dr.
that's,
Layton,
yes,
What time does that?
7 o'clock on the 23rd.
Does that include the write-in candidates as well as?
Yes, because the writing candidates' names were posted on the website and they are also available to be contacted.
Good, okay.
And then the last thing I have, probably the best thing for our students and staff, there's no school on Monday for President's Day, so always welcome to come to school, just don't come on Monday. So there's no school on Monday for President's Day. That's all I had for updates.
And yours was the FAC, or
It
do you have
is,
another?
but I'm just gonna add a little bit
Okay.
more to Dr. Layden's referendum information. The postcards that E.O. Sullivan has helped us with will be in the mail this week, and they'll have all the dates of the informational meetings. Everything that we're doing on our end is simply to provide information about the referendum. So,
And those postcards are for all community members. The one
Yeah.
what we send out is just for our district information, but this will be a community-wide mail.
yep.
Okay.
That was it. Thank you.
Board members, anything to add? No? Okay, we'll move on. Topic,
Can I sub for Lindsay?
Oh, yeah,
Lindsay's
sure.
not here. She's unfortunately sick and asked me if I would
Oh, yeah.
sub for her. I know it's a little bit of a letdown, but I'll do my best. I apologize. First for sports, boys basketball, the team beat Woodstock in their shootout, and they won, and they also beat Sycamore, which is a rival, 52-48. Their next game is tomorrow in the East Gym where they're playing Morris. Our girls basketball team had senior night last week against Morris, and they won and also beat Rosary. And their regional game starts tomorrow against Rochelle at Rochelle. For boys wrestling, boys wrestling finished second place at regionals, and 7 wrestlers moved on to the sectionals, and they finished with a great season of 23-6, 23 wins and 6 losses. The cheer team is hosting a youth cheer clinic. It's open to K through 8th graders, and they'll perform tomorrow night at Valentine's Day at the basketball game. Bowling, the team just went to sectionals this past weekend and finished 9th overall. Emma Pernice qualified for the girls state bowling tournament. So teams move on, and then I think there's like 8 or 12 individual next highest scores that also qualify. So Emma will be competing this weekend at state. For fine arts, the Winter Percussion had their first competition this weekend in Plainfield and finished in 4th place overall. The winter concerts for the band and choir were a hit, and the band and the choir are extremely grateful to be able to perform at Northern Illinois University's facilities. We appreciate their generosity. For clubs, as a reminder, the February 23rd, there's a powder buff game. This is the first time that we'll be doing this competition, similar to the girls, but it's the boys facing off in a volleyball game. Snowball dance is February 25th, hosted by Student Council. The chess team went to state this past weekend. They won 5 of their 7 matches, and I believe finished in 27th, 28th place in state at their state appearance. So winning 5 of the 7 matches is a terrific experience. So congratulations to them. Then just general events. The Mr. Kaneland event is going to be held March 10th. As opposed to the regular date, and it will be in the East Gym. The theme is Top Gun, and then that's what we had for updates from Lindsay. Thank you.
Excellent.
The girls' basketball game is against Rochelle, but at Sycamore.
Okay, so it's at Sycamore tomorrow night.
Yeah, it's
And just as a reminder, some of these highlights that Lindsay is sharing as the seasons conclude, I think it's maybe the first meeting in April, Athletic Director Rollman and Athletic Director Patterman both come and also share more of the athletic and activity highlights as the seasons conclude.
Okay.
That was all I had. Sorry, it's all Lindsay had.
Thank you, Lindsay.
Yes.
Thank you for standing in for Lindsay. Okay, topics for future agendas. Okay, we're good. Any sign-ins for public comment? No. Even though there are no sign-ins, are there any public comments? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on. We are scheduled now, I mean, we weren't originally, but we are scheduled now for a closed session. But since we weren't originally, we hadn't planned to have our tech team stay, so after the vote to adjourn to go into executive session, the recording of tonight's meeting will be concluded, but the any action we might take will be recorded in the minutes and on the website. So I am looking for a motion to go into executive session.
So moved. Second.
And a roll call, please.
Absolutely.
7:55.
Mr. Gonzalez,
Aye.
Mr. Carey,
Aye.
Dr. Lawler,
Aye.
Mr. Mankivsky,
Aye.
Mrs. Simmons,
Aye.
Mrs. Witt.
Aye. Motion carries 6-0.